Video game prototypes are all a part of the foundation of making a successful project. Well, sometimes. Every company that has gotten involved with electronics had to develop the makings of an item that could potentially succeed in the face of its inevitable release or potential failures. The two companies that are known with this are Sega and Nintendo. Among some of the most well-known that they produced are Nintendo's NES and Sega's Saturn, though they almost look completely different than what they would have originally gotten on day one. The versions that we will be looking into for today's video are among some of the biggest changes that took place from its finalized design choices. How big of changes are they, to be exact? Well, they're a lot different than what you would expect. On this edition of the Uncommon Valley, we take a look at the prototype designs for the Sega Saturn and the NES that almost was the Nintendo Advanced Video System. While many already know the existence of the Sega Pluto prototype from watching videos like Lady Decade and Ben Hex Repair the Unit, many people are unaware of the existence of two other known prototypes. The existence of these designs were discovered in 2017 and were originally up on eBay for sale. The website Console Revisions was able to snag a little bit of info on these right before the auction was no longer available for viewing. These were among some of the earliest versions of the Saturn before we got the finalized retail release. First design on the left is unique to the fact that it gives off a very smaller in stature size compared to what we got. Located on the side of the door are two buttons to power on the console and to open the door to the disc tray, and right above it would be an indicator to show that the system was in fact turned on. And for the back of the console, you can see the card slot for where the memory cards would be inserted into. This unfortunately would not be the design they would choose, as the company felt that it was too small in size to operate all of the tech that was inside of the console shell, along with there being no ventilation shafts located anywhere on outside of the system. That's where the second unit on the right side would be the one that they would go with. There's not a whole lot of different changes from this and the one that would be the first version of the Saturn that would get released worldwide. Only slight changes from this prototype is the gold-colored shell that they used for this unit. And of course, the only other things that would be missing from this prototype would be the missing power and AV ports on the back and the controller ports on the front. While the Saturn didn't succeed like how the PlayStation 1 did, seeing these prototype units show up is a cool way to bring history to the masses that most people would have never known before. And given how hard these are to come by, it's always nice to see the various console revised looks of what was going on behind the scenes that almost became officially made. Whether or not you started gaming with the original toaster NES, you can't deny that it helped rebirth the video gaming market here in the US after the video game crash of 1983. While this was happening across the country and many companies were jumping ship out of the industry altogether, in Japan it was looking to bring forth sweeping change with the release of the Famicom in July of that year. Nintendo would look to various companies for potential North American release, and they decided to go with Atari. They would begin immediately on the design to make it more consumer-friendly here in the US, as to avoid it being the distinction of it being compared to a baby's toy. And what was proposed? This. This was to be the official design of choice when the agreement was made between Nintendo and Atari. But we'll get to that in just a bit. Part of the idea was to make it more resembling of a modern computer of that era, so they bundled the console with a keyboard, a cassette recorder, a basic cartridge, and the craziest part of all, wireless controllers and a light gun with infrared technology. Crazy to think that this was the proposed idea that Nintendo thought would make for an impressive gift that everybody would want. Sadly, however, this would not be the case, as while during the same CES event that they would almost finalize the deal, Coleco was revealing the Coleco Atom playing a demo of Donkey Kong running on the new hardware. After Atari found out about this, they would further halt any and all negotiations, as they were wanting any Nintendo titles to remain exclusive on AVS hardware, and not on any of the competitors. The deal would initially be officially dropped when Atari CEO Ray Kassar was let go from the company, which would leave Nintendo with no choice but to venture it on their own. They would later retry to bring over the Famicom, but repurpose it as a newly updated version of the AVS, now named the Nintendo Entertainment System, with its lunchbox toaster design. The other reason for this major design update was possibly because the Coleco Atom was not doing well sales-wise, and wanted to make the console resemble more like a toy. The console would release in limited test markets on October 18, 1985, then February of '86 in Los Angeles, and then the rest is history. As for the whereabouts of the AVS prototype, originally you could see it over at the Nintendo store in New York, but after opening its doors to the public since the COVID crisis, there has been no updates on the layout change if it still can be seen to the general public. It's interesting to note that this was what almost was of the NES that we know today. Could it have been successful had it come out? Maybe. The pricing alone would have been too much for the consumer, and the fact that this was what they thought of as future tech is interesting to see. But thank you very much for joining us on this very short edition of The Uncommon Valley. Thank you for watching as we look to the past, into the present.